All right, good morning. Hi, I'm Brian Stevens, and I've got a main objective. I've got a main objective to cover today. And the first thing, my first main mission is I want to help you streamline your communications during this, what we refer to as a business disruption. I don't like the term crisis. It denotes panic, it denotes stress, and what needs to happen most of all during this time is a calm, steady hand. So we're going to cover how to provide really clear, concise messaging. We're going to cover some best practices, and all this is designed to make sure that you're protecting and growing your reputation. And so that's my primary goal today. And I apologize for the slide deck. It's not really fancy. They're not super exciting slides. I've got my partner Adrian in here. He's off camera because he thought I looked prettier today, I guess. Certainly, we got this together really quickly today on these best practices. So I didn't spend a lot of time making the slides super pretty for you. Really quickly, we've got a lot of additional new guests. Several of our school associations have sent this out. So, hey, thanks for joining us. Just 8 seconds on who we are. We're CASA Public Strategy. We do a lot of campaigns where we recruit students back to public schools exclusively for public schools, and we retain students from leaving, and we do some training. But one of our legacy verticals here, it's all about niche communications, is in business disruptions, crisis management, messaging. So we thought we may be able to provide some really good education to you quickly today as you begin to message out about the coronavirus. There's my contact information. You can email questions, call the office if you need anything. And I put my little book on there just so you know that we are kind of nerds here. We do a lot of research. We do a lot of writing to make sure that we have proven best practices as we go forward. So what I'm not going to cover today, I'm not going to explain the coronavirus. There's a ton of information on that already. I'm not going to give you updates on what's going on currently with the virus. There's tons of information about that too. And I don't think we're going to have time to get into any risk mitigation, any legalities about what happens when you cancel things, what happens if people catch the disease on your campuses. We may have time for a couple questions around that, but really we're going to focus around the messaging. Now, I'm not going to walk through the slide. Don't get terrified. This is how my brain works. And I want you to understand that we have a lot of protocols and a lot of systems about how we deal with business disruptions and what we walk through. And I'm not going to do this to you today. And actually, my brain gets even crazier like this particular slide. I try to provide a more succinct example, but really what we're going to get into is examples today. I'm going to check my time to make sure that I'm valuing your time and letting you get on with your day. But we are going to provide you really some foundational elements about a crisis. And this is where I've got to start. Something happens in I call it the lizard brain. I'm not the only one that refers it to that, but something happens when we get hit with a tough situation, a disruption, something that's a crisis or scary. Fight or flight kicks in. I think we've all heard that. We either want to beat it up or we want to run from it. And I know most of you already understand this, but right now, a lot of us are in that fishbowl, and we've got blinders on, and we're just focused on what's happening right in front of us. And so I've got to remind you really quickly that you've got to have the right attitude with all your messaging. And so that's part of our job to advise you, is to kind of kick away that lizard brain. And here's what I mean by the lizard brain. Goes back to the caveman times, right, Adrian? When you'd see a bush and the bush would be moving, and you didn't think butterflies were going to come out of the bush. What you thought was a lion's going to eat you. And so that was designed to protect you. That's designed that fight or flight mentality is designed in all human beings to protect you. So the psychologists always say there are 7 responses to any crisis situation in our lives, and from attack to apologize to ignore it, just pretend like it doesn't exist. But there's only one right response. And unfortunately, it's not how we naturally respond to it. So you have to remind yourself every day to think like this. So your teams have to constantly be thinking about this very top one here, this cell right here. And I don't mean like selling like an infomercial on TV or our car, like, hey, this has got seat warmers and Under Armour and stuff. I'm talking about advocating for what you're doing right. And anytime you read a press statement, and we're going to get through some examples. Anytime you read a statement, does it advocate for what you're doing? Does it let people know how you're handling the situation? Does it give them information they didn't have otherwise, or confirm what they want you to be doing? Or does it ignore the situation? Or is it defensive? If it's not selling, advocating, you're missing the boat. So I'm going to really advocate for you to advocate for yourselves. And that's going to be a universal theme we're going to talk about as we run through for the next 25 minutes. So 25-minute agenda. I'm going to hit 5 foundations, 5 tasks for great business disruption communications that your team has got to be doing. I'm going to give you a few suggestions about what you need to be communicating today based on what we're hearing, and help you deal with the rumors. And then I'm going to spend as much time getting to examples. If you do have questions, you can email at that earlier email address. There's also a little button. Chase, what button do they hit if they have a question over here? It looks like a help button.
It looks like a little help button. It's a little box with a question mark in it.
A little box with a question mark. You can click that, or you can email us later, and we'll get to as many questions after this webinar as we can get to. If you want us to cover anything specific to your district, give us a call. All right, but let's get rolling and really value that time. I'm about 7 minutes in. And by way of background, I am a lawyer. I'm not your lawyer. We're in crisis communications business, but that's my perspective, and a psychologist. And if you can't tell, I'm an old soldier. So I go fast. I like to keep track of time. That's my perspective. So let's get right to it. So I want to start off with an example about what we did for our own company, and we're going to kind of use that as a baseline to go forward. So I don't want to talk about all the communications we did in January, February about this. Some of it was okay. Some of it not really good at all. But obviously, we are ramping up also, just like every other business and school district out there. The first thing we did is, and this was this past Friday, so a week ago, we said, look, we wanted to provide you accurate, factual information about how this disease is spreading. Now, it was critical. We referred to the CDC guidelines. We read what they knew as of that date. We didn't guess. We didn't get it off of Facebook, but we told them that they should use trusted sources to gain information, not the internet. So we started that communication about self-education. We also use it as an opportunity to dispel in our communications 5 rumors. Now, we did this to kind of set the scene. Video, conference call. We had people in multiple states at this point. And we also sent out an email summarizing this data. So multiple ways that we put out to our targets on our team. And we're going to talk about the targets that you need to identify too. We also said that we were at this point, and this is, in businesses, I know government entities don't have these same qualifications, but we talked about the fact that we're looking at additional paid sick leave. We also told them we're not going to let them work from home. Some companies, businesses, school districts may want to do that. But we as a model can't do that, and we just want to provide a lot of clarity on the front end. We did indicate that we may be bringing lunch in. If things get out of control around either one of our offices in Memphis or in DC, we talked about, well, we're gonna establish protocols, and we talked about cleaning the office, really important. And we talked about the CDC guidelines on if people are coming in sick, if you're sick, don't come in, stay away, right? Now, this next thing was a little bit more controversial. And I think it is imperative to be very frank, very clear. Now, different targets require different levels of communication. They all require truth and clarity. But on our team, I said, look, you've got to plan to get sick. What we know about pandemics from the experts is that these things don't last for 2 to 3 weeks. I know people are closing, maybe rightly so, for a few weeks. But this could last 9 to 10 months. Most pandemics do. They drop down and they rear back up. But we said, look, don't panic. We're going to look into some additional sick leave. We're going to look into bringing food in. We're going to look into cleaning. We have protocols, and we're going to take care of you. But don't lose your mind. Don't panic for 2 months, and then you get sick, and then you lose 2 weeks, and then you get back to work. It's that unclear expectations about the future, and that's one of the first rules that I want to get into. So I'm going to get into that with the second task, but I want to start to get into these action items that you can start to implement right now. Number 1, you need a rapid response team. Now, what is this composed of? What does it mean? It's 2 to 6 people, not many more than that. And I think that it could certainly be your if you have a chief marketing officer, if you want to bring a principal or two on, if you want to bring your chief of staff, the superintendent, anyone that can gather together very, very frequently, multiple times a week, evaluate, monitor what's going on, and decide what they want to communicate out. And they also have the ability to make decisions or get decisions made in a timely fashion. So if the superintendent is not on it, do they have access to the superintendent? Can they get a quick decision out of the superintendent? And can they respond quickly? And then most of all, your rapid response, this team that gathers together needs to follow the protocols I'm going to talk about next. Certainly, and Chase is waving a note at me, outside advisors are always good on this, lawyers. I mean, we sit on several rapid response teams just to provide an outside guidance and influence with their communications and messaging. So it's team advisors that will have controlled messaging going forward. And this is the things that they need to do coming up next. So first thing that your rapid response team needs to do is identify the groups of people that need to be communicated to. Different groups require different communication streams, all right? One group, the employees, the teachers, the staff, you're going to provide them different context about what's going to happen with their jobs and their careers and curriculums and cleaning than you would to the parents and the students and also to the community at large. And then the school board, potentially. So really, if you start thinking about it, you have potentially 4 target groups, and I don't want you to neglect any of them. What are you communicating to staff, your team? What are you communicating to parents, caregivers, and students? What are you communicating to the community at large and then to your board, right? 4 different groups that you need to make sure that your team is communicating to. So the first thing, figure out who your targets are, all right? So all too often, we see that you forget a target group, and it's not because you don't care about them, it's because you're busy. It's because you got all this information dumping on you. But if you keep those nice locked-in protocols of each group, how they got communications, and you've got this team focus on it, you're going to make sure that you're providing the right amount of contact for people as you go forward. I know, it says speak the truth. It says speak the truth on this slide. I'm not inferring that people lie, but all too often what happens is people start to sugarcoat. People start to try to de-emphasize everything's going to be all right. There's not a problem. We're going to be great. You know, no one's going to get sick. There's no danger here. They try to be really, really nice. The problem with being really, really nice is it kicks you in the teeth if things adjust differently down the road. And I think about a meningitis outbreak, and I think this was this Minnesota or Wisconsin? Maybe
Minnesota.
It was Minnesota. Okay, so this was years ago. There was a meningitis outbreak, and the doctors went in and they said, "Hey, people are going to die." And they gave the percentage. It was about 1 out of every 7 people that contract the meningitis are going to die. I'm not saying that's going to happen in the coronavirus. Please don't write that down and say that I said that. But in this case, they said that. And people, why would you say that? Why would you tell people that? And they go, because it's the truth. And what happened weeks later? They were right. People died, and it's super sad. It's unfortunate, but the doctors then were even more credible, and people wanted to listen to them even more. And then when they said things, people knew it was right. And so what they did is they built a reputation, increased their credibility so that people would listen to them. And when they said then later on, don't drink bleach as a cure, people didn't drink bleach because they were a trusted source, because drinking bleach is stupid. And so when I'm talking about speaking the truth, what I'm really saying is in all those messaging, it needs to advocate what you're doing. But I think you've got to be realistic on what's happening, not scary. You can certainly provide reassurances, and we're going to hit that with some of the examples that we're going to get to. But fundamentally, your team needs to be honest with people, not scary though, right? And certainly those different target groups can have different levels of in-depth communication about how deep you want to go about the truth. All right. So block number 3, the 3-2-1 message system. Okay. So here's what I mean by this. I don't have time today in this 25-30 minute webinar to to get in depth with you about the messaging of all this. What I put this in here for you today is to understand that brevity is really important, and people retain information in chunks and blocks. So the human brain, a lot of science on this, can retain about 3 things before they use it and lose it. And I really want you to think about each target group and what's the number 1, number 2, number 3 thing you want to convey to them. Certainly you can have a ton of supporting documentation behind that message, that short blurb, that power statement, and it is its 3 message points of no more than 21 words each block, because that's about 14 seconds, which is a soundbite. But I want you to emphasize what's the most important thing. If you try to communicate too much, it's all going to be a wash. So put your main things, the main thing, and then start to just provide supporting information after that. And we'll see that in the examples as we go. Next big thing that needs to happen. People are going to fight me on this over and over. If you don't know what to say, I need you to say that. I need you to communicate out even when there's nothing to talk about. And I say this, but people fight me on it all the time. They're like, Brian, why? There's nothing new to communicate. There's no new updates right now. Why do I need to say there's no new updates? Remember that lizard brain we were talking about? People fill in no information with bad information. And so the analogy I always think about is if your child, if your spouse is supposed to be somewhere and then they're an hour late, they're 2 hours late, they're 3 hours late, and they don't communicate, they don't say anything, there's just no information. The human brain fills that void with bad, not good. Typically, the human brain will go to 1 or 2 things if they don't tell you. It's a safety violation. They're dead in a ditch. That's what my wife always thinks, Adrian. She always thinks that I've been in an accident if I don't text her. And then the other thing that people will think is the person is doing something they're not supposed to be doing. They're doing something wrong. They're in trouble. They're not, serving food in a homeless shelter. They assume negative impact. So you've got to really focus on filling in information. All right, is that if you don't give them information, they're going to assume the worst case scenario. And so let's talk about cleaning real quick. I know you probably clean the schools, and I know we got pushback from a school district the other day. I was like, you need to tell people how you're cleaning the school, and they we're already cleaning the school. We've always cleaned the schools. We got a great team that does that. But if you don't tell them that you're cleaning it and how you're laying it out, they're going to assume that you're not. They're going to assume you're not cleaning anything. So I know it seems redundant, like we already cleaned the school. You got to reemphasize this, especially right now. And then I put some. I mean, we saw some people wearing trash bags to protect themselves from the coronavirus. We saw people trying to think they could drink a cap of bleach. People are going to turn into zombies, right? I mean, there's always something to communicate. You can certainly send out, hey, and I love this statement. We talked to you Monday, parents, teachers, that we don't know what's going to happen, whether or not we're going to close or not close. Now let's fast forward to Wednesday. Hey, there's been no change, but we're still monitoring the situation. And here's a rumor we want to dispel. And here's the CDC link to go get accurate information. What a pro move to send out every few days. It lets them know you care, lets them know you're focused, and lets them know you're thinking about it. All right, I think I got that. All right, but I get such pushback on this. I wanted to say, please over communicate. All right. Things we know school districts must communicate right now. Are you closing or opening? I'm not telling you to make a decision to close or open. I'm just asking you to over communicate where you stand as you go forward, because if you don't, people are going to be curious. What's going to happen with aftercare activities? If you're staying the course right now, put out a communication that you're staying the course for right now. If you're not, let them know. All too often, we'll get statements of like, well, it's standard operating procedure. We're not changing anything. Why do we need to tell people? Because the world's kind of freaking out right now. So you want to over communicate. How are students going to complete their assignments and grades if you are off longer? Are they going to have to go into the summer or are they going to do it online? Are you going to double down? You're going to go longer hours? Even if you don't have the answer, say we're looking into it, we don't know yet. people are pretty forgiving if they know you're working on something. So it's really great for your reputation to say we're working on it, but we don't know. In our particular case, Adrian and I and the other partners hadn't decided whether or not we're going to increase paid sick leave, but we're looking at it and we let the team know that you may not be shutting down activities yet, but hey, we're looking at it, we're evaluating it right now. It's status quo, but know that things are open to change, but we are monitoring it. God, it just brings such reassurance to people. It makes them feel so good that you're paying attention. This cleaning thing's a must right here. This cleaning thing's an absolute huge must. And then the other thing is if you are choosing to close or considering it, what's going to happen with your child care? I know that's not your responsibility, but it is something you're going to get a lot of questions about. So you may want to have your team, your rapid response team, start to navigate some suggestions for people. I think these are all kind of must completes. Oh, this next slide is for another webinar we're doing for our business clients later today. So not important for you. Let's get into the examples. And I think I'm right on time so far, Chase. Okay. And just remember, if you do have questions, you can email us even after this seminar. We really want to be helpful to you. We want you to navigate this disruption as smoothly as practical. It's going to be messy. All right. This was a statement that somebody put out. I think this is great for school districts. Those two big boxes in yellow there, they thank people. And then they thank them for being a part of their family. Every communication is an opportunity to connect with people. Don't, all too often, you know, Adrian, we see people that get real stressed out and they forget to thank people. Thank you, parents. Thank you for allowing us to educate your children. Thank you, teachers, for trusting us to be a part of our team. Thank you. Now, here's what we're doing. Thank you doesn't cost a dime. It doesn't cost a penny. And it's just a really pro move. So I love this example. Okay. This one, this is an example of a company that put out what they were doing. Now, they didn't have anything bolded in red. I put the red things in here to kind of give me what we're going to talk about. I'm not going to read this, but they said, here are the measures we've taken in recent days. And then they provide a list. They talk about cleaning. They talk about disinfecting surfaces. They talk about using hand sanitizer. And then they mention down here at the bottom that staff with flu-like symptoms, as always, will stay home from work. I think that they should have probably made that a little bit bigger. I think they should have, they didn't really fundamentally, they did have this big block at the top. It says your safety, and they did 3 big blocks like that in their email, which was good. That was a pro move. Your safety, and then the next one was, you know, updates in the future, and that was good. I like a lot of content here. I probably would have highlighted that we're asking our staff, our teachers, our parents, if they are sick, not to come in to infect people. The same thing that we're asking for students to do. We're asking people to self-regulate, to self-quarantine, and that's a lot of mandates by the CDC. So I think it's really, really pro. Next example, bad idea. I saw a district, not one of our people. I would have gotten on to them about this. Is they actually provided at the time what they thought the CDC was saying related to this illness. Now, I know when I was talking to my company, I said what the CDC was ready, but what they were putting out, but I said, as of today, here's what the CDC is indicating. They're a trusted source. They're an expert. It's not a rumor. It's not on social media. I want my entire team to focus on the CDC. And then I read what the CDC wrote verbatim, pretty much. Here, they summarized it, and I think that whoever was summarizing what the CDC was indicating either got old information or they kind of augmented it with some online chatter. For instance, this do not try and self-diagnose yourself. That's not really accurate right now. The CDC, last I checked, I don't want to start telling you what to do. I want you to go prove it yourself, but they're saying if you feel bad, stay at home. Don't necessarily go to the doctor until it goes even deeper, until it gets pretty bad, but you've got to make your own decisions. I don't like you giving medical advice to anyone in this. Let the doctors and the medical people do that. Refer them, though, to the experts. Keep giving them the expert knowledge and expert links and just do it over and over and over again. So don't try to become medical people. Let the medical people do it, but refer them to good sources. I like this one. It has some reassurance at the end. We're going to monitor the situation daily. We're going to provide updates. We're going to get through this together. Pretty nice statement. the one thing I don't like in this, and I know I get to be hypercritical as I feel like I'm one of those movie evaluators right now, but I think it's the best way for us to learn, is I don't like this and provide updates to you when appropriate. I think you need to schedule. Hey, we're going to provide you updates on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's a lot. Even if we have nothing to report, we're going to report that there's nothing to report. That lets people know that they're going to get something. It taps down their emotions. Tomorrow, I'm going to get an update. Okay, cool. Nothing to update. Great. I know it puts a lot of workload on you, so you got to figure out a rhythm of communications that you can stomach. All right, that your team can actually do consistently. But this updates when appropriate. I don't know. I don't know what appropriate means, and I'm a little nervous that what they mean is they're not going to report when there's nothing to report. And I'm begging you to do that. I'm begging you to do that. Let's see what my time is. Yeah, I've got a couple minutes left, and then we'll try to take a couple questions, and the rest of them you can do online. This was an actual college. This was a college that shut down, but still pretty good. This was, so if you look about those different targets, this would have been their employees, the staff, the people directly affected. They need more information. They need it, and they really provide copious details. March 22nd, March 23rd, facilities are going to remain open. It was a very, very long email, lots of questions. I still think they should have broken it down into 3 big buckets and then provided the supporting detail behind it. But all in all, really good information. At the same time, another a college that we saw just said, we're out. I mean, literally the statement is everybody, pack up and ship. It looked like a panic. I didn't even want to show it. It looked like they were just panicked, right? I mean, it just stressed out. These people seem controlled. They seem like they're getting good information, and it increased, I think, their reputation. And they also provided information for instructors. It was long, and I think they ought to keep communicating. So hopefully they will keep doing this. And I love this. I love this. They refer to the CDC and the World Health Organization. Awesome move, because then they're not saying they're the experts. They're saying we're going to keep referring to the experts. I really dig that. This one is great. They could have said this is just an example of, even though there was no change, we're telling you there's no change. The campus is not closing. Just look, over communicate, pro move. I do like this next example. I know I'm running fast. Feel free to call Adrian or I if you have any questions. I love that they put down it's anticipated summer sessions will occur. It's anticipated right now, because people will go, what's going to happen with the summer? Well, it's anticipated they're going to occur. Oh, it's anticipated. Okay, well that's a pro move. I really dig that. I'm not going to get into all these because I see that we've got a couple questions on deck that I want to get to, so I'm going to skip some of these. I would like to end with this one example right now. This was a post that a school district put out, and this was the extent of it. It was no change, but they said, look, state and local officials are not recommending this right now, so we're not going to do anything, but we're monitoring the situation. And that's cool, man. That brings confidence, and it gets people to feel a little bit more secure about what's going on. So look, if you do have questions right now, you can email Brian at KCPS or even Adrian, and we can email that out to everyone that attended. And matter of fact, there will be an email that will go out after this if you have any questions that you can follow up with us on. We really want to be supportive in this time and help that you grow your reputation, because no better way for us to recruit students and to retain students for you if your reputation is going up. And I know you want to do the right thing. So I think we've got time for one or two questions.
We've got a couple questions, Brian. If you want to open up your questions tab there, I'll read them off, but that way you can follow along with me. We've got one here that's, what's the best way to handle an angry parent? I know we've heard this through the grapevine. There's a lot of parents who are very upset just because it puts a lot of stress on them when schools close. So what's the best way to handle an angry parent and solve that?
So I hope you can hear Chase. He's sitting on the other side of Adrian right now. What do you do with angry parents? And here's the tough thing. We're talking about a no-win situation sometimes. If you don't close, they're mad because you didn't close, and the kids are potentially could become affected. If you do close, what are we going to do with our children? You overreacted. I think it's really important to lead into the safety first and say, look, the paramount thing we're going to do is safety, and then our principal responsibility to educate. Safety, education. And you can lean on to whichever way you decide to go first. If you do close, you say, look, safety's paramount, and here's some ideas about what to do with your children, but safety's paramount first. And this is, it's okay not to have all the answers. And I think as educators, and I taught labor and employment law for a while, and when I was up there, I felt like I had to have all the right answers. And I just want to give you permission not to have all the right answers. You don't have to know everything. You can say, we wish we knew, we wish we had better advice, and you can keep giving them information as you go forward, as you come up with solutions. I would say just keep communicating, and you're going to get fussed at either way. I'm sorry. Over communicate will help you get through it a little quicker. I think we got time for one more, and I think we'll handle the rest on email because I'm technically at 31 minutes, and then we'll take one more, and then I think we'll wrap it up.
I've got one. What's the best way to get the information out, whether it be teachers, parents, board members? What's the best way to communicate?
Wait, great question. Great question. How do you communicate? How do you get the information out? I'm going to be a little flippant every way possible. I do want you to put it in writing. If you want to shoot a video, shoot a video. People like to see faces right now. Video, social media. Train your ambassadors. Your ambassadors are your teachers, your principals. Have them posted up on their social media. Ask them, specifically ask them to share these communications. That's part of the role of your team. If you have PTA, ask them to share this information. Email, social media, press releases. Very, very pro move. Very, very pro move. I said I was only going to take about 30 minutes today. We're a couple minutes over. I really appreciate you all staying on board, and I appreciate everyone new coming in. We may do a webinar next week on risk mitigation, liability issues. Only if people have a lot of questions. If not, we'll just kind of deal with it one-on-one. I hope you found some value in this. We're all going to get through this. Every pandemic has found an end to it. And so there's some reassurances for all of us. And I really hope you found value in this. So thanks a lot. Bye.